One press conference. One statement. And over $10 trillion wiped off the global markets in just 48 hours. This is unprecedented. A single remark from President Trump about no plans to pause tariffs on Chinese imports triggered a tsunami on global stock exchanges. Investors feared a rapid escalation of the trade war, eroding trust in the U.S. economy and sending financial markets into freefall. Could this trade war push the world into an unpredictable financial crisis? And if the U.S. can no longer maintain its global financial leadership, who will step in? The aftermath was immediate. Stock indices plummeted, risky assets were sold off, and trillions of dollars were wiped out in just a short period of time. This is the financial shockwave that we've never seen before. This is not just about tariffs or numbers on a ticker. It's about trust, and the loss of trust in America's financial power. Are we witnessing the beginning of a major shift in the global financial system? In the wake of the largest financial shock of the year, the big question is, are we witnessing the beginning of a major shift in the global financial order? The fears of a prolonged trade war and the failure to pause tariffs have not only impacted stock indices but have started to undermine trust in the US dollar as the world's central currency. This could drive countries to explore alternatives to the dollar. Can the US dollar maintain its dominant position, or will we see a new wave of emerging nations looking for a new currency to replace it? Countries like Venezuela, Nigeria are already negotiating oil deals outside the US dollar, while BRICS countries are increasingly pushing for local currency transactions to reduce reliance on the US. If the US dollar is no longer the standard, will these nations form a new financial bloc strong enough to replace America's role? This is the big question, as the global financial system faces changes we cannot yet fully comprehend. Venezuela and Nigeria are not the only countries seeking to break free from the US dollar. But what's significant is that they have started negotiations with BRICS partner countries to trade oil and other valuable resources without the need for USD. The Venezuelan government has openly announced that it will move toward trading oil with Petro, a digital currency created by the Venezuelan government. This marks an important step in their attempt to break free from USD's dominance. But Venezuela is not alone. Nigeria, one of the world's largest oil producers, has also begun negotiating oil deals outside of the US dollar, opting instead to use the naira or even a new currency within BRICS. Could this be the foundation for a new financial system, where developing nations no longer rely on the US dollar for trade and international payments? If BRICS succeeds in creating an alternative financial system, this could be a major blow to the US financial dominance globally. So, if the US dollar no longer maintains its central position, will BRICS be strong enough to create a new multipolar financial system that doesn't rely on the stability of the US economy? The BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have already started building independent financial platforms. The BRICS New Development Bank, NDB, is now offering dollar-free loans to developing countries, which could be the first step in replacing the IMF and World Bank. They are not only funding infrastructure projects in countries like Brazil, India, and Africa, but they are also starting to support smaller economies in reducing financial risks from their dependence on the US dollar. This financial platform is not just about economics, it's also political. By pushing for domestic and regional financial deals without USD, BRICS is sending a clear message: we can create a global system without the intervention of the US. With local currencies or alternative currencies, can these countries hold their ground in the global financial competition? Or will there be a fierce showdown between traditional blocs and these emerging powerhouses, signaling the dawn of a truly multipolar world? As the trade war between the US and China rages on, a new financial trend is beginning to take shape. And that is the strong rise of the New Development Bank, NDB, founded by the BRICS Group, which is directly challenging traditional global financial institutions like IMF and World Bank. The BRICS Bank is no longer just a novelty, it has become a formidable financial force, as it begins to offer dollar-free loans to developing nations. This is a huge breakthrough, as countries no longer have to rely on the US dollar or the control of Western financial institutions. The emergence of NDB and these non-dollar loans is changing how the international financial system operates. Countries like Brazil, India, and Africa are beginning to turn to NDB for easier loans and lower costs. Notably, the BRICS group has been setting up financial deals that bypass the traditional monetary system. This development is weakening the role of the IMF and World Bank, as these organizations can no longer retain their monopoly in providing development capital for emerging nations. Can the BRICS Bank build a completely independent financial system, breaking the dominance of Western organizations? And if BRICS succeeds, could we witness a new financial revolution, with a system that no longer relies on the USD and Western financial institutions? This is the big race between the old financial system and the emergence of a new financial system, where BRICS is ready to replace the IMF and World Bank. This is not just a competition over currency but a competition for power and influence in the global financial system. What we're witnessing is not just about the dollar, but a transformation in the entire global financial system. Moves by countries like Venezuela, Nigeria, and BRICS members are challenging financial norms that have lasted for over 70 years. This is a change not just in economics, but in politics, as these countries push for using their own currencies or seek new methods of transactions outside of the financial system that the US dominates. However, the big question is whether a multipolar financial world can fully replace the system led by the US. And if countries no longer rely on the USD, what will the world look like in the near future? Will there be a clear division of power, with new financial centers like BRICS taking the lead? Or will we face a world in chaos, as major countries fight for financial power without a clear leadership? If the world shifts to a multipolar financial system, can countries collaborate to maintain stability, or will it lead to currency wars? And as BRICS gradually takes over in offering loans and financing to developing nations, we are faced with the question, will the world enter a new era of financial multipolarity? Ultimately, we must acknowledge that this shift is inevitable in a rapidly changing world. Countries no longer wanting to depend on the USD will forge their own paths. This will force the US to adjust and confront challenges we cannot yet fully envision. We are living in a time of inevitable changes. According to international financial experts, the diminishing role of the US dollar is not just a temporary phenomenon, but a long-term trend. This is a result of the trade and financial policies enforced by President Trump, which have pushed many countries into seeking alternative financial solutions. According to Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, the shift to a multipolar financial system is not only necessary, but it is a trend that many countries are proactively creating. This shows that BRICS and other nations are not simply reacting to the weakening of the dollar but are actively building independent financial alternatives. Could this shift lead to a truly multipolar financial world? Financial expert Michael Pettis argues, the emergence of financial platforms outside the US dollar will change the balance of financial power globally, but it requires time and unity from developing nations. However, there are concerns about the instability that replacing the US dollar could create. A multipolar world could offer benefits in terms of diversification, but it could also increase the risk of financial conflicts and political tensions between emerging powers and long-established financial nations. Can the US reclaim its position in the global financial world? Financial expert Lawrence Summers from Harvard notes, if policies don't change, the US could lose long-term financial power, especially as rivals like China and Russia intensify their efforts to develop alternative financial systems. So, what can we expect from the future of the global financial system? Financial experts emphasize that the shift in how countries interact financially also points out that this transition is an opportunity for emerging nations to rise and assert their financial power. However, without sustained international cooperation, currency wars could intensify, destabilizing the global economy. Our financial world is entering a new phase, one of diversification and distributed power. This will push major countries and traditional financial institutions to compete, adjust, and form new cooperative frameworks to ensure financial stability globally in the future.